Non-fiction. Hello, guys and girls. Welcome to Mario Zna podcast. Welcome to Serbia, Belgrade-based podcast here, showing to the whole world what the real situation is. Because mainstream media and corporative media is hiding a lot of shit from you. This is why we are doing it right now, like with guests who already been here, with new guests who are coming, and today's new guests, somebody who is a friend. Because here in bunker you cannot enter if you're not like a good friend of mine. You know, I'm that kind of guy. You know, you have to earn it, but just be a normal person and love Serbia. So it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. Today we're going to talk about everything that my guest does, about history, about today's, about future, about everything that you cannot hear anywhere. So let us start. Aron Palasios, welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me to your platform. Thank you for allowing me into the bunker, as you said.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be over here, man. Thank you, Mario. I really appreciate it, brother.
Aron, thank you for accepting the invitation. 2 weeks ago, we talked in a bar. That's the Serbian kind of way of getting closer, you know.
Yeah.
But for the beginning, I know that a lot of people know you. Especially people from Serbia who are following you, and they're appreciating that. I'm appreciating what you are doing. But please, just like 30 seconds, 1 minute, can you introduce yourself to the public for those who don't know you, just to see and to hear who are you and what are you doing in your life?
Thank you, Mario. So my name is Aron Palasios. Basically, my journey to start talking about history started when I first started doing TikTok videos about World War II. And it was kind of a journey. I started doing a lot of videos about concentration camps that the Nazis were running. When I first started my series on concentration camps, I picked a list of females, like women concentration camp guards. Mm-hmm. That led me to do a lot of research about the different concentration camps that the Nazis ran. And through that journey, I was able to find out about Jasenovac. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things that in a way, since I was little, I was always like a fan of history. And it was kind of like a shame, internal shame that I had, that I never heard that there was a genocide against the Serbs. Of course, there were genocides against the Roma and other minorities during World War II. The fascinating, in an evil, weird way, was that the concentration camps that were run by Jasenovac were not run by the Nazis. And what was particularly interesting to me was that Croatian Ustashas, and through that discovery, through discovering all of that, I was able to learn more about the genocide against the Serbs, and then I was able to understand why, in a way, this is not often talked about. And then the journey started from there. I then started learning about Kosovo and everything that happened in the 90s.
The gates were open, you know, after you start researching about it, because, you know, everybody knows that when Western media hits you with propaganda, you're done. And that's what happened to Serbia and Yugoslavia in last 30 years. Right now, we are like doing a counter-offensive when it comes to shutting down that kind of propaganda. And the world, I think the world is starting to see who the real bad guys were and are right now. And who are the defenders of Christianity, for example. That's just the first step here in Serbia and Romania, where we are fighting off like the ISIS for the centuries. And now they are saying thank you, guys, you know, like hey, thank you. But people didn't know. This is the good thing about social networks and social networking. So yeah, but so you're basically, as I put it, because I talk a lot with your colleagues, and I say colleagues because the historians are basically, a lot of them are just are copycats, or they're making shit up. So you're like freelance historian. Can I call it like that?
Yeah, 100%. Like I went to school. This is something that since I was a little kid, I was always fascinated by. And I think you need to understand history to be able to understand not only the past, but where you're at right now and how the future will look. Before I answer that, one particular thing that interested me about when I started doing research about Jasenovac was that, for example, when I was talking about Auschwitz or all these other concentration camps that the Nazis ran, I never got a response from Germans, for example, saying like, hey, that's fake, that was not true, blah, blah. But when I started talking about Jasenovac, what made me more interested to search more was that there were people denying that this even happened. And again, I'll go back to your initial question. Yeah, I went to school for economics. But economics, history, politics, all of these things are intertwined.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Yeah. It's not the first case. We have one man who is, I think, the best historian here in Serbia, Mr. Samardžić. He was also a guest here. He's also an economist who started doing history, and now he's filming, doing movies about real history that was banned here during the communism time, showing the real face of World War II and Chetniks and partisans and Ustashis and others. But I'm not going to ask you the questions like how's the food here in Serbia and how's the women. I always tell them, because people who are following you, they know your connection with Serbia and how do you spend your time here. We will focus on your professional view. And first question for you, what came to my mind is this is like the basic question. Everything, when you wrap everything around, how would you describe Serbia and Serbs?
So, and I'll say this, I'm not going to be the type of person that's going to be making videos like, oh, Shavapi's good, this and that. I mean, I like it, don't get me wrong. Like, I love the food here and all of that. But I wanted to focus on something more serious, but also, too, my journey through this was not only the historical aspect. When I came here, I was able to feel the warmth of Serbs. The best way that I can describe Serbia, and I'll describe it in a similar way to my own country, it's a sister nation that is facing some of the same propaganda that a lot of countries and a lot of people that decide to stand up for themselves faces. So when you don't want to be under the foot of somebody, you stand up, and the best way, one word that I learned through my journey in Serbia was the word inat. We don't have that in South America. We don't have a word for it, but it exists. So that is one of the things that I can describe Serbia mostly, specifically, especially when you concentrate on the history. So the word inat.
So when you know history, when you learn history, there is a lot of things that Serbs don't know about their own history. It's normal for any nation that people are like just focused on today's happenings and never look back. But we all know that history repeats itself. Do you agree with me?
Absolutely, man. And I think like even when it comes to things that has happened in the last 20, 30 years, like let's look at, like, for example, the Yugoslav wars in the 90s. When you look at, I made a video one time talking about Operation Oluja, or for example, when Croatia decided to declare independence, and why the Serbs in there, at least from the perspective and the things that I was reading about, the Serbs in that area, Krajina, parts of Bosnia, why will they rebel against Croatia declaring their own independent state? Because the last time that they created an independent state of Croatia, they attempted a genocide against those people. And I try to create those parallels. Like, the history does repeat itself. That's exactly what happened when they declared independence. And again, history is, we need to understand history not only from the past, but to understand the present, where we're at right now, and to understand how things can manifest in the future. Anything can change, but you need to understand that context of it. And I think even in my platform, one thing I will say is, because I am an avid reader, man, I love to read, and I become obsessed when I'm curious about something. I try to research as much as I can. If anything that my platform can kind of like help or at least inspire people is that Serbs, for example, you guys have a long history. I always say this, like, Serbia is a very small country, but has a history this big. And sometimes we take things for granted. We take things that we already have, we take it for granted. And if anything that I can inspire is like for people to, because I do it in English, but Serbs, you have the language, you have the the way to be able to communicate these things. And if anything, and again, like your platform, in a way, not only allows for people to have a different perspective from the outside, but also inspire other young people to, you know what, this is our history. We should be even more proud. And again, this is one thing that I found out here in Serbia. Like, Serbs are very, very proud who they are and their history.
Yeah, it should be like that. I respect, for example, all the people that they are proud of who they are. If they're not making up, if they didn't make up the history, you know, for example, like if you have like a proud Slovakian guy, proud French guy, proud American guy, even if, I don't know, my neighbor's house is older than the White House. No. It's good, you know, but yeah, but it's like that. But I understand right now we have like a good communication with American patriots, especially because of work from the crew of Serbs for Trump and those fellas, girls and guys who are doing the great job for Serb diaspora in United States. But when you were researching, when you were doing reading, when you were writing, filming new stuff about history, when I said the history repeats itself, right now as we speak, it's end of the April, it's beginning of the May. This is the anti-fascist time of the year, because a lot of memorials are being held against Nazism, fighting against Nazis in Europe, also here in Serbia, in Russia, all around Europe. But today we have basically, really, when you look at it, especially when it comes to European Union, it looks like they really inherited the Third Reich politics. Like, when it comes, also not only when it comes to Serbia, but when it comes to their connection and their type of behavior towards another countries that are not accepting some kind of dictatorship from Brussels. Did you cover that? Did you saw, for example, what Brussels is doing to Romania, what is doing to Serbia, Slovakia, Hungary, to all those countries who say just, we don't want your type of culture in our society? How do you comment it?
Absolutely, and like the same dark political forces that existed during World War II are still alive today. And if you look at the economic project of the Nazis, what they wanted to do, in a way, Germany kind of inherited a lot of those things. The only thing is that they're doing it through like political force. They have a lot of political power, and they have the backing of the United States. Let's look at it, for example, like the war in Ukraine. And you can look at the news reports even before the Ukraine war started. From the West, there were a lot of news reports about, for example, a lot of these Nazis that were Nazi militias that started operating within Ukraine, and the banderists, the people that supported Bandera. And then when the Ukraine war started, there was kind of like a revisionist history towards these people. Oh, these are the heroes. These are the defenders of Ukraine. And when you look at when you fight wars, you fight in two planes of reality. You fight them through military tactics. You fight them with weapons. You fight them with guns, and then you fight a propaganda war. And those two things go hand in hand. And in a way, like, this is not just happening in Serbia. This is kind of like a worldwide thing. And when we're talking about Europe right now, but this is kind of like a worldwide project when you start to look at the imposition of certain countries over other smaller countries, as per se. In Latin America, for example, one of the things that we have a longer history of dealing with the United States. Again, we are younger countries, but United States as a global empire started with the idea of the James Monroe Doctrine, America's backyard. This is our backyard. This is our sphere of influence. The American empire as it exists today started because of those things. So this is something that we've been dealing with for a very long time. And again, the same dark political forces that existed during World War II are still alive today, and they manifest in the ways that you describe.
Yeah, but when you see it, how can, when you know history, when you know a little bit, you don't have to know much, but when you know like the basics, you cannot be so blind and be like, oh, everything is going to like pass, it's going to be okay, there's not going to be any war. When you see that they're waging a war against their own people, you had it in the United States during Biden era, you have it right now in European Union when they in UK, for example. I don't know if you know the information, but the Prime Minister of UK, Keir Starmer, he's just bragging like they arrested 400 people about wrong thinking, you know.
And that's crazy. The thing. This is why I think platforms like this are very important, because you're saying like, oh, people just accept it. Yeah, they accept it because the filter of information is through corporate media, and corporate media, who owns corporate media? The same people that influence political power over the different countries. They are the ones that own the media. And I think platforms like yours, in a way, is a way to kind of wake up people. I think social media has been a great thing. Obviously, has been kind of like a bad thing, because now the same actors are using it to manipulate the masses in a way. But
if you look more deep, you know, you can find, if you know how to search, you will find the right information. It doesn't matter if the censorship is imposed, because we've been through that. All of us who are talking about the truth, who are bringing the truth, we went through the censorship, and it doesn't matter. You just said it. Like George Soros is influencing everywhere. It does. Serbia, United States, Hungary, Germany. It's globalism. It's they want to close the planet. So before we get back to the global opinion, because I want to hear it from you, just switch a little bit back to Serbia and this part of the world. For you before you start researching, you were not familiar with it, as I was not familiar in situation in Philadelphia until I start researching there. So I see that there is also problems in that part of the world, in that city, especially when it comes to poverty, social problems. Like basically, like it's near. Like it was at one time. I know that in United States were on the brink of the civil war. It looked like that after the Ferguson happened, George Floyd, after everything. But we've been through it here. So tell me, please, what's the most interesting part of history here in Balkans, in Serbia, for you? That you got that you can debunk, that the West told one story and you found the truth, that we can say like, okay guys, you lied, this is the real thing that happened. Do you have a list about it? Because there is a lot of that.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. Like if I was to put it on a list, there's a ton of things. One of the things that I started to focus on more when I kind of moved on from World War II was the Kosovo War in 1999 and how they sold it. The bombing of Belgrade, for example. This is part of when I started learning about the Kosovo War. That's what made me even more excited to talk about it, because the way that they sold us into this war was very similar to like even the war in Iraq, and even the campaign of bombing that the United States did, the Operation Shock and Awe that they did in Baghdad in 2003. The testing ground was Serbia. Like Belgrade was the testing ground for that. If you look at the images of Belgrade being bombed in 1999, you look at the images in 2003, they look identical, and it's not a coincidence. The idea that, for example, Kosovo and Metohija belonged to this group of people, and the United States used a reason to be able to intervene in there, and then basically rip this part of the world of Serbia and make it into a NATO state in a way. And again, like we can get into like even the population question and all of that, but like when we look at the history of Kosovo and Metohija, that's because I talked about the Kosovo War, but then that led me to understand like, all right, why are these people claiming, why are Kosovo Albanians claiming that this is their land. Like, for example, the monasteries or the churches. If you look at old documents, a lot of this, even UNESCO, like there's a lot of monasteries in Kosovo and Metohija that are World UNESCO heritage sites. When they built these monasteries, there were documents that, like old documents that state who built them and all of that. And when you start, especially like after the Kosovo War started to happen, there was this idea of creating a myth of a nation. And actually, those were not Serbian monasteries. They were Albanian monasteries. They were Catholic monasteries that we built a long time ago. When you start to look at, and this is the thing, the more time passes when it comes to this question of Kosovo, they're building a myth about a new nation. So the longer this time passes, the more people tend to believe it, and we do have to ask the question about, like, close to 90 to 95% of the people that live in Kosovo and Metohija today are Kosovo Albanians, and all of those people believe the narrative that was their land, that they belonged there, Dardania and all these other Narnia, I always say that this was their land a long time ago. So that's one aspect of it. Operation Oluya is another one that is very and when I use the word fascinating, I don't mean it like an excitement. It's fascinating the way that they portray this ethnic cleansing of close to 250 to 300,000 Serbs from Krajina and how they were pushed out. This was one of the largest ethnic cleansing operations after World War II. Even to this day, I don't think we've seen like a mass, especially in Europe, a mass transfer of the population, and no one talks about it. A lot of the, I think there was a general, Gotovina. He was a Croatian general. He was the one that was in charge of this operation. He went to trial in The Hague, blah, blah, blah. They eventually released him, and then they pardoned him or whatever it was. This man was in charge of an operation that, again, cleansed over 250,000 Serbs from that area. And then there's a revisionist history to that. What happened to those things? When we talk about the Bosnian War too, like criminals like Nasser Orish, this guy's a terrorist. He's celebrated in Bosnia as some sort of like defender of Srebrenica, even though he took off over there and let all his people die. 4 or 6 of his commanders were able to like escape in a helicopter. These are narratives that are not told in Western media, and are not told. These are part of the whole story, but they're not told. You know, we only talk about like the Serbian war criminals and all of that, and you guys got the label of that.
Yeah, we got it. But right now, the climate in the world is like going in our direction, like because for first time since Serbia exists, we established some kind of alternative to give the information to the world. You know, mainstream media is falling down. CNN is like, nobody watches CNN anymore. Nobody watches like the TV anymore.
They probably watch the channel more than CNN.
You have podcasts like Joe Rogan, who is like playing the Red Star basketball players. You know, you have a lot of people talking about Serbia. You have Novak Djokovic. You have like this kind of hype in the world. So right now the things are changing. You know, Albanians, especially in Kosovo and Metohija, they were like a cult. They had like a tribal society kind of stuff, and when they had it, everything was like going as they planned. But right now, because also Albanians saw a little bit of the world, they got out of those tents, you know, they went to London. They see, you know, they saw that they can like, they don't need to take organs of people, you know, and deal drugs and kill. They can be singers or football players, you know, and then because they had like 9 to 10 children 40 years ago. Now they have 1 or none. So they're like losing themselves, you know, in a way. This is why I tell to all my Serbian brothers and sisters, like, just like be patient. They're going to call us to help them, because, you know, IQ is like level of this energy drink. You know, no, this energy drink basically has more IQ than a regular Albanian. It's scientifically proven, bro. They're like the lowest You know, so they can only held a gun, but now they want to go to European Union. They have LGBTQ parades in Pristina. You know,
that's part of the plan, though. Like the government is doing those things to appease the West in a way, but even Albanian society doesn't agree with that. Like most Albanians will probably disagree with the aspect of like. Then the president of Kosovo, whatever his name is, at one point the prime minister Kurti, he was promoting, like he was walking in like a gay parade, like people were, I mean, obviously there was a group of people that was supporting that at that specific place, but there was a backlash in Albanian society. And I will say this about Albanians, man, like look, on the internet they like bark hard. I think they're a very loud minority, especially like in the in like for them to wield so much. At one point they kind of wielded, like, because during the Kosovo War, I always tell Albanians, I'm like, the United States didn't go in there to help you guys. Like there is always a project when it comes to these things, and you have to understand, like, you're a useful kind of dog in a way, you know. They use them to be able to build that base in there. I mean, that's a strategic base for the United States, for NATO specifically, bond steel. In America, for example, like you mentioned, like they started moving to London. They started being, like the largest population of Albanians in the United States is in the Bronx, New York. The Bronx, New York is an area of like 1.3 million people. Yeah. Around 56% of that 1.3 million people is Latinos, and another percentage of them are African Americans. Now, these people live with us. A lot of the Albanians that I met in the United States, extremely polite people, very family-oriented, business owners, people that I would consider upstanding members of society. Again, the ultra-nationalists that start, I mean, and I will say this, like, probably a lot of them supported, like, what happened, of course, during the Kosovo War, and then they have emblems of UCK in their house or in some of their businesses. You're able to like see that. You should have pride in your country, but don't try to force feed us this narrative like this terrorist organization was freedom fighter for liberty and all of that. No, they were committing horrific things, and they were doing horrible things to Albanians too, that they consider collaborators, because there were Albanians. I met Serbs, for example, that fled Kosovo and Metohija after the war because of all those revenge attacks, and then a lot of those people were like being kidnapped and being opened up for their organs. There was a whole market of that, specifically in Turkey during that time. And some of the Serbs that I met in Kosovo and Metohija that live here in Belgrade and other parts of Serbia, they even said like, oh, some of our neighbors helped us out of here, like, you know, get out of that, because they knew what was going to happen to them. So this whole idea of using the, like, force feeding the world, like this idea that the UCK, the Kosovo Liberation Army, was some sort of force for good, it's complete bullshit.
And as I said, people are starting to know it, especially people from the western part of the world, from United States, from the Western Europe. They're starting learning it because they see it on their own skin. They can feel what's happening. They see that in UK the highest percentages people in prison are Albanians.
Even though they're a small minority, the per capita, I was looking at like a list that the government of the UK released that talked about that specifically.
And of course, there's good people among them. Like it's stupid to say that all of them are like that, but I know that a lot of them are afraid. You know, during the trials, when it comes to war crimes, like a lot of witnesses were killed, just disappeared, because they have the kind of mafia type of politics. You know, if you talk. If we think that you're going to talk, you're going to go go away.
And I think there is like especially amongst the young population of Albanians, at least the ones you see in the internet, there is like this, and I know not all of them like promote that, but like a huge minority of like the young people, like they have a fascination with like this mafia thing, you know, like, oh, like we're the baddest, me Albania, like be careful with me, blah blah blah. That's actually kind of, you're making your own people look bad in a way, you know, like this is not helping your narrative at all. So I always try to point it out. I'm like, you're gonna cut my head off. Like I make videos about Kosovo, Metohija, and I'm talking about like historical things. We're gonna cut your head off. I'm like, okay, like do you think you're actually fitting into the narrative that I'm actually trying to paint here, because it's actually factual, and you're threatening somebody that's posting a 2-minute video on TikTok, that's actually ridiculous.
Yeah,
you know?
this is why I say that Alvin Kurti is like working for Serbian special police, you know, like he's doing, and all of them with that narrative, like Gunter Fillinger, you saw that guy. He's our guy. You know, he's our on payroll. You know, tell me when it comes to this, as I said, these 2 months are dedicated to the victims of fascism and Nazism. We see right now that the new chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, is a grandchild of SS Nazi. You know, as Dmitry Medvedev pointed out, but we could assume, because every one of them has a grandparent or grandparents who were in SS units, like the killers, the worst of the worst, and now they are like telling us a story about human rights and how we should behave. But when you said Auschwitz, the one thing came to my mind, and I just want to ask you about your opinion about it. It was not a long time ago where it was like a gathering for the special day when in Auschwitz, and everybody was there. All Germans were there who held that. Poles were there. Everybody was there, but the ones who liberated it, the Russians, were not invited. This is like the hardcore shit that is happening in the world. Like, how do you look at it? Because it was like Serbia was a testing ground. Now we're canceling Russia from everywhere.
Yeah, no, and this is the ridiculous aspect of it. I think you mentioned, like, for example, a lot of this, like after World War II, the Nazis were not completely decapitated. Yeah, they grabbed certain war criminals, they tried them. Look, we're putting them in jail. But a lot of these people, especially like I forgot the name of the operation. I don't know if it was Operation Paperclip, where a lot of scientists were taken to the United States. Yeah. They became, they revitalized their image. These are great scientists, blah, blah, blah. You mentioned the guy Gunther. I think there was like an interview one time I saw, like with someone, I don't know if it was you, but they asked him, they were like, wasn't your grandfather? That was you. Yeah. And he was like, oh, he fought for the German. Oh, no, he fought for the Nazis. It was like, he was part of the Weimar or whatever it was called. A lot of this, it's such a hypocrisy. The people that liberated these concentration camps were the Soviets, and who's doing the commemoration? The descendants of the people that committed these horrific crimes. And again, when the Ukraine war started, there was a huge. What was the main thing that they painted Putin? At least in the United States. Oh, he's the new Hitler. He's the new Hitler. That's actually like a very disgusting way of like poking and trying to force feed at a mass scale the people to say that these are actually the bad guys. And again, we talk about like history repeats itself. This is a form of that, and this is the propaganda war that they're fighting. So the Russians, in a way, again, alternative media like yours and others allows other voices to be able to point to this horrific hypocrisy, which it is a hypocrisy. But they're trying to force feed the same people that committed, like the same people that talk about human rights are the same people committing human rights violations all over the world.
Yeah, this is why that gets me pissed off, you know, because like you're telling me that I should live that way, but you're not respecting my basic human rights, especially when it comes to Western countries. You know, you go out protesting in France, you're going to get your like head blown off. You know, you go to protest in United States, you can get killed. You know, like you can stand on the street. You know, if you do not get killed by a junkie, you know, or narco cartel, you know, you can get killed by a police officer, you know, who is stepping on your neck, or I don't know, you can get killed by a woke transgender who is like crazy, held in gun because he was like bullied in the high school, you know.
And this is the thing, like they point out like what you should do while we're like our society. This is a hypocrisy too, that even in American society, people have woken up to that we point out the human rights violations of other countries, but we have massive, like for example, Philadelphia is a place of like it's one of the poorest cities in the United States, even though it's like third or fourth largest when it comes to the population. And the human rights violations that are happening over there, it's not just like coming from the police or anything like that. When you are not able to provide and you're not able to have a functioning society where people are able to go up economically, that is a form of human rights violation towards your own people. And you know, we're sending all of this money to Ukraine, we're funding all of these wars, but we're neglecting our own home. And people have woken up to those things, especially in the United States, because we're talking about poverty in other places, we're talking about alleviating that, but what about what's going on? Like, this is a quote unquote the richest country in the history of the world, yet we have situations in Philadelphia where there's a large, massive population of people that are homeless, even though there's empty buildings out there to be able to provide homes. We have a heroin and fentanyl crisis. Like, if you walk through there, man, I'm telling you right now, I come from Venezuela. There are places in Philadelphia that don't look like, we tend to say like, oh, that's the third world. No, I read this one time, and it was like, the United States is the richest third world country. Mm-hmm. There are places in Philadelphia that are disgusting, man. Like, because of the human misery, the suffering that people are going through, the drug epidemic.
And those are not the migrants on the streets. Those are regular Americans, like born Americans. A lot of them are were in wars. A lot of them defended their country in some other country, which is not normal, but they fought for United States. I did a math. If Biden administration took that money, which it gave to Zelensky, and gave it to the homeless in the United States, every homeless person would have a home with a pool.
Yeah, at least the veterans, man. Like the veterans, there's literally veterans from the Vietnam War, veterans from the Iraq War, veterans from the war in Afghanistan that are homeless. And some of them are not even getting treatment that they need, not only mentally, because that's another casualty of the war. And just to go back to the opioid epidemic, like the opioid epidemic in the United States, we talk about the cartels and all of that, but the opioid epidemic in the United States was fueled by pharmaceutical companies in the United States. So this is a topic that we often don't talk about. And again, to go back to the veterans, I was actually talking to a friend yesterday, and I was explaining to him there was a situation I think it happened in Iraq. So there were a group of soldiers, and this is like it was like a whole unit that were in charge of burning the fuel, burning the waste of the bases. And these people basically were put in this military bases in Iraq and Afghanistan to just burn fuel. That fuel, these people were breathing it. It took 15 years, almost 15 years for the United States. A lot of these people came back and started getting cancer. And one of the things that, imagine this, as a veteran, you are entitled to some sort of free healthcare, which is not free, like you pay with your service. It took 15 years for the Veterans Affairs, the VA hospitals, the veteran hospitals in the United States, and legislation for them to accept, because a lot of veterans were not getting the care that they needed, because they were like, oh, that's an unrelated injury outside of the war. It took 15 years of lobbying, of veterans dying left and right for them to be able to get the healthcare that they needed because of that. Now think about it. Like, you go to another country, you fight a war, you do your duty in service, and then you come back and you're denied healthcare. That is a tragedy. That's another casualty of the imperial wars that the United States fights, and that we often don't see in the media, but we see it in our society today. Yeah. So,
how do you think when you combine the history that you are researching? When you look at the situation right now in the world, and not only in Serbia but in Europe and Russia and China and United States, and when you take into consideration the Trump administration, these tariff wars, all the shit that is happening, you have like the greatest Minister of Defense, this guy from the Fox News, I think, like Pete, Pete is like chatting on Signal, like he's like crazy, And what do you think the near future? would look like for United States, because I see everybody screaming, like everybody from the woke, idiotic cult is like, oh, look what Trump is doing, look who has he put on this place, look, he's going to get us in economic crisis and shit, you know. How do you look at it? What's the destiny of what's the future of United States in the next 4 years?
So look, outside of the context, and like we both can agree with this, Biden, complete dementia, like the guy was not there, not all the way there mentally, but even physically. Kamala Harris, I'm gonna say the word, like a complete retard, like put in there to go against this guy. And then there is a context too about the hysteria against Trump and all of that. I will tell you this: I do not have any. When I voted in the last elections, I didn't vote for either one. I just wrote a name in. The main reason,
Bernie Sanders. He wrote Bernie Sanders.
I'm not even gonna say the name, but yeah, I did. I literally wrote that name in. This is the point too, man. Like, look, I do not trust American politicians and the oligarchs in the United States, because I'm gonna use the same word that they use against Russia, the Russian oligarchs. Well, the oligarchs in the United States, I do not trust them. Like, we talk about George Soros, we talk about the equivalent of George Soros on the right in the United States is Elon Musk, in my personal opinion. I do not have a lot of confidence in American politicians, and I do not have a lot of confidence in oligarchs in the United States. Now, I don't have the hysteria about Trump. I think there are some things, especially when it comes to tariff, that needed to be done. But whose fault? Like, when we're going into this tariff war with China, whose fault is it that a lot of the products that we get into the United States come from those places? Like China is a country that have their own self-interest that they have to do. A lot of these policies were put into place, economic deals and all of were put into place by previous politicians in the United States. We are at fault a lot of that. Like what's happening today with the tariff wars and all of that. Tariffs, put tariffs on China. Again, all of these policies were made by previous administrations. And I'm just going to say a personal story. When I first moved to the United States, my family moved into a small town in Virginia, Bassett, and there's like 1,000 towns like this in the United States. Bassett was a major town that, like, the main employer in there was Bassett Furniture. That's why they named the town Bassett. It was there for like 80 years, 90 years. When my parents got there, they worked in that factory, but it was in decline. Why? Because of all these deals. All of that furniture now is made in China. Now, what happened to the population in there? What happened to the jobs that were in there? All the jobs in that town were completely destroyed. It's not a coincidence that that town became one of the epic centers of the opioid crisis in Virginia, Southern Virginia. It became a ghost town. It became zombie town. I know friends that literally went into drugs. All my friends that did well in life, quote unquote, went into the military, saw other places, and they got the hell out of there. So now, there's 1,000 towns like that in the United States where a lot of these economic deals that benefited corporations at the expense of paying Americans less. Then the number one employer in that town became Walmart, and at that time they were paying $7.50. Man, you cannot survive on that. You get what I'm saying?
You get more here in Belgrade.
That's crazy, and that's still the minimum wage in the United States, $7.50. Wow. The federal minimum wage is now $15. For federal jobs and all of that. But think about it. If you're making $15 an hour in the United States, you're not making enough money to survive. In Philadelphia, if you're making $15 an hour, you are not paying your rent on time. You're not gonna be eating the same food that other people eat, or you're gonna eat less. I'm telling you that is the casualty of a lot of these economic deals that, again, benefited very powerful people like George Soros. Like, again, Elon Musk was not in the picture yet, but other economic players in the United States, at the expense of what? The American population, the working class people. The working class in the United States is, like, we talk about like class war and all of that. There is a class war against the working people in the United States. And again, someone like Donald Trump came in there talking with the language of helping working class people. But I always say this, I don't know, man, like, someone in West Virginia that worked in the mines, that's been struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. And this guy from New York City comes in there, he's a billionaire, and he's now he's gonna be the savior of the working class. I have my doubts when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's normal to have a doubt, but you can be sure that that Biden, it's good that he had the dementia, because if he didn't, there will be lots of wars.
Absolutely.
Around the world, and all of these guys from the Democratic Party, I was born and raised as anti-fascist. And now they made that anti-fascist means woke.
Woke, some blue hair, pink hair.
Yeah,
people.
Man,
it doesn't even make sense. And look, I'm gonna tell you this. This is the hysteria of Donald Trump is so crazy. And remember, the corporate media actually aligns itself more with sometimes certain parties. So a lot of the quote unquote left media in the United States, corporate media always aligns with the Democratic Party. Yeah. Look at what happened with Trump in his first administration. He talked tough about mass deportations. We're going to do this. I was against Trump because of that. I'm an immigrant in the United States. I'm a U.S. citizen. But of course, I have a soft heart for that. And it's my people too.
Yeah.
So, of course, get rid of the criminals 100%. Like, I don't know any immigrant working people in the United States that's not against that. We want the criminals to be deported. But think about this. Obama deported more people in his 2 terms than any president in American history. 2 million to 2.3 million people. Now, Donald Trump didn't even deport 20% of that. But Obama did it with a nice tie and a smile, talking slick. Now comes Donald Trump. Like, there's a hypocrisy with Democrats that's like, oh, he's racist. Actually, let's say his rhetoric is racist. Obama's policies were racist. If you're going to start comparing, if you're going to call Donald Trump a racist because he's talking about that he's going to start deporting people and all of that, and you don't talk about the real mass deportations that happened under Obama, and you're not calling him a racist, what's going on here? There's a hypocrisy. And again, there is a hysteria around the figure of Donald Trump. And there are forces that want to create that hysteria.
Yeah, of course.
Because there are things that I agree completely with him when it comes to the disengagement of the world. We need to step back. We don't need to be involved in this place. We don't need to be involved in this war. I support that 100%.
But they're burning down the Tesla cars, man. Did you saw? Will you compare George Soros, or his original name is George Schwartz? Yeah, because he changed it. Because he used to send Jewish population in Hungary to camps. He pointed out the fingers and told to the Germans that he's living there. There is a Jewish family living in that house. So when we talk about George Schwartz and Elon Musk, comparing them, we don't see any patriots, any conservatives in the United States burning down the Soros radio stations, and he has 300, 400. They held everything. So it's we cannot, of course, that Elon Musk gave that platform called X to the world right now. What did George Soros give to the world?
No. And I agree with you. This is part of the burning of Tesla cars is part of the hysteria that they created around this image. I completely disagree. That's actually like lunatics. If you kind of think about it, that's why the corporate media in the United States, that's why I don't agree. If you look at any criticism of Donald Trump in corporate media, it's twisted completely, and it creates violence. Like you said, there's not a bunch of patriots out there burning TV stations or burning whatever they're supporting. But there are people doing this crazy thing, like burning Tesla cars. That's ridiculous. But it's part of the incitement of hate. And there are lunatics out there, even what happened to Donald Trump with the assassination attempts that happened against him. That is part. The media was painting him as a devil. That is dangerous rhetoric that you can use, and then the corporate media we didn't do anything, but yes, you did. You actually did a lot.
They created those people who tried to assassinate Donald Trump. We see that those people who tried to assassinate Donald Trump, not long ago, we had a kid. He's a teenager. He was arrested. I think he killed his parents. He has some Ukrainian background also. everybody has Ukrainian pro-NATO woke background, you know. So when we talk about terrorism, especially in the United States, that kind of domestic terrorism, I think that FBI and Kesh Patel, our brother Kesh Patel, you know, he's the brother, like he's the bro. That they know where to search to find a problematic person when it comes to domestic terrorism, you know, and those are the people who are brainwashed. They were not took by CIA and put on the chair and brainwashed. They were brainwashed by CNN. They were brainwashed by ABC, CNBC, and other mainstream media. We didn't finish when it comes to this United States future. Is it going to get better? What do you think? Is Trump going to? Does he have enough time to change the situation?
So I'm always going to be optimistic about the future, especially I think like if there's any country that can turn things around, especially for the American people, it's going to be the U.S. government. There's a lot of money. If there was more political will, things will completely I will hope, and I think will completely turn. I think there is a lot of uncertainty, and this is the first year. I think like any political program that's like serious, it's not gonna be 4 or 8 years, you know. And if let's say for example Donald Trump creates the basis, because this is the idea of like a long-term project, you have to create this basis in the first 4 to 8 years, and then someone has to continue like pushing the baton forward. I am optimistic about the aspect of the economic situation in the United States. I think at the beginning right now, I think Donald Trump has made some mistakes, but I cheer for the best aspects of the U.S. government, because I think at the end of the day, I live in the United States still, and it will be not only wrong of me to say that, oh no, I think the United States should go down. No, actually, I want our society, I don't care who it is in power, as long as there is some sort of help for the American people. And I think the economic future, especially if we start withdrawing, if Trump does what he says is saying about pulling back this global military empire that we have, I think we're going to be heading into the right direction. And again, first year that is in power.
Yeah, it's first few months.
Yeah,
it's like first 4 months. So there is a lot of time. But when we know that they tried to kill him like few times, and people around him should be really careful. And I said to all of the Americans, like guard this man. Like, if nothing, he's not going to start a new war. If he starts, then we're going to change the story. But for now, and from in the past, we saw that he didn't start any war. He's a direct guy. He's like that. He loves himself. You know, it's normal. You know, he's not. Can you imagine a politician that hates himself? You know, like. Who is going to vote for him? But when it comes to relationship, when it comes to a relationship between Serbia and United States and Serbia, do you see enough space to finally get to the same side of the story? We were working together in the past for hundreds of years, collaborating. We made the world from dark, we made it glow. From Nikola Tesla, Serbian, to Nikola Tesla, an American, who brought the light to the world. We did something together, and then we had that time of war. Of course, it serves us. We are never going to forgive Bill Clinton. But we know who is Bill Clinton, and we know that administrations are changing. So right now, I see that kind of it's not hatred, but distance is blowing off. You know, we're getting closer and closer. Do you feel that? Do you think this is going to get even closer?
Yeah, I think it will get closer, but this is not by coincidence. I think, like you mentioned, Sasha, earlier, for example, there are the United States is a place of interest, and the United States is always going to do what's best for their interest. Obviously, there are going to be partnerships that are going to, I think Serbia and the United States are getting closer together, but again, this is not by coincidence either. And I think like the diaspora of Serbs in the United States like plays a huge role. I think when we look at Sasha and the group that they created, Serbs for Trump, that is actually like that is a warrior for Serbia in the United States. Those players are very important for the closer of relations. If you don't have that, if you don't have people like that over there, things are not gonna move. Things don't just happen automatically. And I think one of the lady, I think the ambassador that they named in Bosnia,
Olga Ravasi.
I think she comes from that organization.
Yeah. Olga Ravasi and Sasha Jovičić, they are the founders of Serbs for Trump,
And again, that's not by coincidence. So I think like we can be very optimistic because you have people like that in the United States that not only love America, but they also love Serbia. They have, and it is in the interest of the American people too to be closer to a country like this. We talk about the defending of Christianity and all of that, and then there's more talks about that. Well, this is a country that has been battling ISIS since like 700 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we're just facing a new aspect of it through ISIS and stuff. So it is players like that are very important in the United States. Things are not going to happen. United States and Serbia are not going to get closer together unless you have and continue to develop those things. That's why I talked to Sasha several times, and I was amazed. I'm like, you guys are lunatics, and I say it in the best way. I'm like, this is crazy that they attempted to do this, and it's very important. That's one way to bring these two countries closer together, diplomatically, but also through friendship.
And they're successful. That's the Serbs in the United States are family people, successful people, having their own businesses. They're integrated into society. Different side is, for example, the Albanian side. They didn't integrate into society. They're still doing mafia. They're bragging how they cut the heads off of the people. So you have like, it's easy to see. You cannot find blacklisted Serbians who are raping people, but you can find Albanian blacklist. In London, in UK, or in New York, mafia, Albanian mafia working on crimes and doing lots of crimes there. When it comes to American
and
view,
we have more common with Serbs.
Of course.
The American people, especially like when you look at the Christians in the United States, there's always like, there's an area of the United States called the Bible Belt. If Christians in the United States understood what happened in Kosovo and Metohija, they will be appalled, because we oftentimes when you go to a Protestant church in the United States, the pastor will speak about the persecution of Christians. Well, this is happening right now. So what like, and people don't know that in the United States. And again, culturally, because of Christianity, but also like how you said, Serbs have integrated into society in a easier way than a lot of groups. So
that's the thing. But when you said about, when we talk about Christianity, for example, we see that rise in people finding their future in Christ, which is the best, like, which is really good. Us Serbs, we are Orthodox Christians. We are like, and I see that in America, a lot of people are switching to Orthodox. Did you notice that?
Yeah, man, I noticed that. Like, it's kind of, but I think it's kind of global too, because I even seen people like in Latin America talking about Orthodoxy, and I think it's like a loss of values. People start to see, and look, I'm gonna criticize. Like, I grew up in a Protestant house, and going to the different churches, I always say this, like when I go to churches here in Serbia, like you can feel spirituality. Like a lot of churches in the United States, there's a thing called the prosperity gospel. They talk about being rich. This is the way that God blesses you. You go to churches in the United States sometimes, man, and it feels like a hospital. It doesn't feel like a place of revival, a place where you should feel. So I think people are going there, since there's a decline in cultural values, traditional values, and all of that, people yearn for that. So in a way, orthodoxy in a way is appealing to a lot of these people that are lost and are looking for something.
Looking for a real religion, because
real relationship with God.
You cannot see an LGBT flag on Orthodox Church, but you can see it on Catholic Church. It's crazy. It's crazy what happened. Like you see it in New York. You see a church which LGBTQ2++ flag hanging on. So I understand the other Christians searching for a regular Christianity, like the oldest one, and that is the Orthodoxy. I saw that the son of Alex Jones converted to Orthodox Christianity. Yeah.
There was like a famous tattoo artist that recently, like I forgot her name, but she's very famous, and she converted to Orthodoxy too, and she made a video about it. Very beautiful. But again, like there is a culture, like there was a point in the United States too that they shame people like for being Christians. Oh, you are like, oh no, these are racist, these are this, these are that. They're against people, like against LGBTQ. Yeah. That is so there was, and now there's a backlash.
Yeah,
the backlash is people searching. Hey, actually, why are you shaming me for being Christian? There was a point that was happening in the United States, and I think in a way. So why do you have to impose your values on other people? Like if my family grows up a certain way, we believe in God. We believe in certain tenets of the Bible. Why does that bother you? Why should you impose those whatever depravity that you have? Why should that be imposed on me and my society? No. So there is a backlash towards that depravity, and again, it's a culture of backlash that's happening. And I think that's why people are appealing to a more real relationship with God.
Yeah. It brings you closer. The Orthodoxy brings you closer. It's not like some people are when they hear Orthodox Christians, they think like the Orthodox Jews, like it's totally different. We don't wear hats. Like we can be bold. We don't have like and you can also work in Orthodoxy. It's good to work. You don't only have to read. What's your view? What's your view when it comes to we talked about Nazis and we talk about new Nazism, and we see it in the world, we see it in Europe. But when it comes to Ukraine, for example, like, how do Americans look at it? Like the regular folks, how do they look at it? Okay, from the money perspective, I know that America's like, how much more do we have to give to this little guy? But what's your thought? Can we go deeper about it? Like, what do people think? Would American go to war against Russia?
The first 2 years, when the first year the Ukraine war started, this is the craziest thing, man. It was like mass psyop that was happening. There were more Ukrainian flags. I remember my neighborhood. Like, I live in this area that's called Brewery Town. If you cross to the other side, it's Fairmont. Fairmont is mostly Polish, Lithuanian, some Ukrainians. The other side is Latinos, a mix of different people. There were more Ukrainian flags. You could go anywhere in the city. There were more Ukrainian flags than American flags. There was a mass psyop against it. And I think I mentioned this last time that we met. The whole idea was so disgusting to me. And look, everybody should have pride in themselves in their country. I agree with that completely. I bought a Russian flag on Amazon and I put it on my wall thing. But no one said anything or anything like that. But there was a point that people were being canceled in corporate media if they said anything in support of the Ukraine war. In support of Russia, but it's not even in support. Like they were just giving you context about what was really happening. The American people today saw through the bullshit, because guess what happened? They lied to you. Oh, the offensive is coming. We need to send them more and this and that. You actually, like, a lot of this money that we sent to Ukraine and a lot of these weapons that, like, a lot of these future offers that were gonna be put, this armament that was gonna be sent to Ukraine, was not even going to be done. Like, you sent over $100 billion to Ukraine in the first year. A lot of that money, first of all, got lost. The declining economic situation in the United States kept going down, and people were like, what are we doing this for? The majority of the American people, I don't know anybody personally in the United States that supports that war. And we think we should get out of there, and we think, hey, whatever Russians took, give it back to them and negotiate. We need to force that in. If there was a war with Russia, I think Putin was more popular in the United States than Biden.
Yeah.
because they saw him as a strong leader. That's another thing. The whole backlash in corporate media when they were promoting the Ukrainian war was that like, oh, the Ukrainians are gonna win and we're gonna keep funding them. And again, the economic situation kept going down. And what did the American people saw Putin as? They started seeing him as a strong leader for his own people. And whatever economic situation happens in Russia, I don't understand it fully. But one thing is certain, that people saw at least a leader within their society, in another society, that was doing the right thing for their own people. And we were seeing our leaders in America not doing the right things and throwing money out in all these different places. So if there was a war, I don't even want to even say it, but if there was a war with Russia, I think the majority of the American people will not enlist, because you have to force a draft on people. And what's going to happen?
Who are you going to draft? Who are you going to draft? Like who's going to go a volunteer? Like a Vogue transsexual?
Those
are the ones who are supporting Ukraine.
Yeah, there was like some guy, some trans person that went out there. I was like, what the hell is going on? And then you're fighting with Nazis. Like, this is crazy. Don't even make sense. You're going to force, and there's like a patriot movement in the United States. I don't think and there is, like, for example, the American people have a bad reputation. Like, oh, they're dumb, they're this and that. But the American people do have you're not going to force them to go to a place. I think, again, the propaganda in the corporate media always plays a huge role in drumming up the war. So these 2 years was a lot of propaganda to eventually, maybe, potentially see the United States facing off against Russia. I don't think there's an appetite. Even the American politicians, even the ones that are more warmonger, there's not an appetite for, and especially within the American population, to go into war against a country like Russia.
Yeah, but when it comes to South America, for example, those kind of relations when it comes to Washington and countries in South of America, like, how do you look at it? How do you look at it? For example, you see that Bukele from El Salvador is having a close connection with Donald Trump, with his administration. He's taking in some migrants, criminals, putting in his prisons. And some people are like, when Bukele started cleaning the shit in El Salvador, which was crazy. Like, you can tell it. I don't need to tell it. Like, El Salvador was the most dangerous country in the world.
Yeah, like the Salvador City was the murder capital of the world per capita. There was a lot of murders. Basically, the government of Bukele labeled legally and through rhetoric this gangs as terrorist organizations, which they were. And the previous governments always worked with these gangs. They were part of the political system. The one thing that I will say is, like, I agree completely what Bukele did in his country. First of all, like, there was a dire situation in there and he needed to have a strong hand, and the majority of the people supported that. The thing that's happening right now with the migrants being sent to El Salvador, they're being sent to this prison, and there is a legal question when it comes to this. So, for example, there's a diplomatic conflict right now between Venezuela and El Salvador. Venezuela's demanding legally, like, okay, give us all of the name of the Venezuelans that are in there, tell us the charges, and if you don't have any charges because they committed crime in El Salvador, or did they commit a crime in the United States? Why are they in El Salvador? Release the list of crimes that they committed in El Salvador, because they shouldn't be held in there. One of the things that I'm noticing is, for example, these migrants, and there is going through the courts in the United States, because there is a legal question about that. Like, why are you deporting people to this place and then
deport them to Venezuela?
Deport them to Venezuela, or like, what's going on in there? Like, what like, how long are they going to be kept in there? So I started. There's a diplomatic situation between El Salvador and Venezuela, and in a way, like, legally, this is a dark spot legally in the judicial system. The same thing that was happening in Guantanamo Bay, where people were being held indefinitely. Like, what's going on over there? Like, okay, they're terrorists, they committed crimes, but like, why were they not held in America? If those migrants committed crimes in the United States, they should be like, our political system and our judicial system says that they need to be tried in the United States, and then after they serve the sentence, they need to be deported. Now they're being sent in El Salvador, and there is not it's like a legal black spot. So what's going on? So I started kind of like looking at some of the parallels between like Guantanamo Bay and like what's happening in there. Obviously, it just started like a few months, like 2 months ago. So that question needs to be answered, because in a way, like legally, you cannot detain. Like, let's say a Serbian guy or some Albanian guy commits a crime and then they send him to El Salvador. Like, what the hell? That don't even make any sense, you know? Legally, it makes no sense.
But in Albania, we have the same things. Like, they're opening prisons for migrants from United Kingdom and migrants from Italy. So they're going to make a camp for like Sudanese, and
they get money for it. I think the Italian government, they were doing some deal, but also too, like even in Albania, that is a legal question. Like why why like deport them back to their country? Again, some of these countries cannot accept them or don't accept them and stuff like that. So that's another question. Even in El Salvador, I understand that could be a question too, because at one point I think Venezuela was not accepting some deportations. But now there is that legal question of like, what are they charged with? Just at least send them back to Venezuela and then end it.
It's crazy. Tell me, please, when it comes to Serbia, when it comes to your time here, like, what are your plans? I see that you are like working regularly, posting daily a few times, and you have like really good material that is spreading around, and thank God for it and thank you for it. But what are the future plans here? Are you going to stay here or going back to United States? What are your plans?
So yeah, my long-term plans in Serbia is to stay here. So this first month, man, I've been like running around all over the place. I've been all over Belgrade, meeting with few friends that I met last time that I was here. I do have an exit to leave Serbia in June 17th. I'm gonna go back to the United States, spend a month, 2 months in the United States, and come back. So my number one mission though is to at least stay in Serbia for 1 year or more. I always tell my parents that. I tell my family, I'm like, yeah, I'm staying a year, but you know how life is, man. Like it's an open, and I think you lived it through your own life too. There are certain plans that I do have that are concrete, but there are certain things that are open. I might stay here. I love Serbia, man. And again, there's a million ways that I can describe why I love Serbia, but a lot of these things make sense in my head and in my heart. My number one mission while I'm here in Serbia is to learn the Serbian language. I want to be able to like go to different places and be able to talk to the people. I think that will allow me to understand more of the Serbian mentality, the Serbian soul, but be able to understand the history better. There's a lot of books, historical books about Serbia that I'm not able to translate or not translated into English or Spanish. So for me to be able to really dig deeper into Serbian society and its history, I need to learn the language. So that is my number one mission while I'm here. And I wanted to continue to enjoy this place, man. Believe it or not, I do feel more free here in a way. And I live in the home of the free, as they say in the United States.
Yeah, but tell me the difference. Give me the few points that makes you think like that and feel like that. And I'm not hearing you're not the first foreigner. I have to say it like that. You're from foreign land. We accept you as a brother.
Of course,
but
I understand.
A lot of people who come to Serbia, they say like, man, fuck, we don't have this kind of freedom at home. And here, us Serbs, we think that we should be more free than we are. So do you have something that you do not have in the United States but have it here? What's that?
So look, in society, and I'm going to talk about this because this is like in the United States, you work to live. You don't live to work. And look, I'm not going to be tone deaf about the economic situation in Serbia, because a lot of the people that I've met struggle like day to day here.
Yeah, of course.
And I come with a different background, and I come from a kind of a different economic situation. So I'm not going to be tone deaf to those things. But one thing, for example, in the United States, like I'll give you an example, like a lot of people in the United States don't take vacations, or their vacations are within the United States. Most people work most of their life without enjoying life in any sort of way. And I notice Serbs do work very hard here in their country, and again, they do struggle economically in a lot of ways. But I can go to any cafe over here on a Tuesday night. There's people like this. People are sitting down. They're enjoying themselves. Like people in the United States live in islands. Like we're isolated from each other. Like that community aspect has been lost in a lot of ways. One of the, like when it comes to the social organization of Serbia, like I noticed that people are more closely connected to their family, to their friends. They sit down and have coffee. Like the first time that I came here, I went to a coffee place. I'm like, oh, can I get a coffee to go? He's like, to go? Like, he was like, I don't have any cups to go. He kind of like, give me a little cup. I'm like, never mind. I'll just sit down. And I sit down and I drink my coffee in there. People sit down here, enjoy each other's conversations. In the United States, like you're working 40 to 60 hours a week, if not more, to be able to put food in your table, to be able to survive. And you don't have the, like, again, we're free to be slaves in a way. We are free to be slaves in the United States. And I do think that in life, not everything is about money. I think money is a tool that we need to use, but again, it's not everything. When it comes to police, I'll give you an example. In major cities in the United States, there has been a backlash against these laws. But in certain neighborhoods in Philadelphia, if you look a certain way, in New York City, it was like they created this law that was called stop and frisk. So this is illegal under the Constitution of the United States, but they put this in municipalities in the U.S. You're walking down the street, you look a certain way, stop right there. Let me check your pockets. And then whatever they find, they take you to jail. So think about that. Like that actually existed in the United States, like in the land of the free. So in Philadelphia, there's certain neighborhoods that you are walking around in there, the cops stop right there. You're not supposed, like, they need to have probable cause to be able to detain you and do things like that. So in a way, I think that limits your freedom in a lot of ways. And corporate media, for example, there's the idea of freedom of speech. There is no freedom of speech completely in the United States because everything is filtered through a certain thing. If you say the wrong thing, you're getting canceled and then you're demonized. Is that freedom? No, that's not freedom. And I know it happens everywhere.
Here is the same.
It happens in every place. But that's one of the differences that I've seen. And again, I do feel more free. I feel happier here. The food is not as poison as back home. There's like half of the ingredients in a lot of our food are banned in Europe, and I know in Serbia too.
Yeah, we don't have insects here, you know. In European Union, there's a lot. You can eat something you don't. They don't need to tell you now. Right now, they brought a law in European Union. They don't need to put it on the cover that a certain product has parts of insects or insect flour from the worms. Yeah. And you just eat it. They put it. It's actually sometimes in the labels and stuff. Yeah. So it's pretty disgusting. It literally tells you I think when you buy peanut butter, it literally tells you that it's like there could be like rat shit. Yeah, rat shit. Yeah. Also in chocolate. Yeah. Rat shit.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. This is why Serbia, also other countries from Balkans like Bosnia or Montenegro, or Romania or Macedonia, we have like that kind of, they say like third world, but bro, like fucking man, like hey, can we be fourth world, please? You know, because I don't want to be the first world. You know, like I don't need to see in parks people walking. Other people that think they are dogs. Like I don't need that kind of shit there. Which you can find in Berlin, you know, like in Germany, you know, that they're sitting in the park barking like woof, woof, woof. And he has his Heinz Fritz, you know, his guardian, and he's like whipping him, you know. It's crazy.
It is insane, man. That is collective insanity. It makes no sense, and it's a form of depravity, man, and they're promoting it. Think about that.
Yeah.
With mask, and it's demonic.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is demonic.
Did you have enough time to go watch some sports here in Belgrade?
Not yet. Last time that I
have to take you, man. Like, you have to go watch some basketball, man.
Look, the first time that I came here, I went to a football game. It was Red Star against some other European club, and I remember like getting there, and like I always tell this story because I'm like, oh, I'm excited, but as I'm getting closer to the stadium, I just start feeling the tension, the people. I start seeing the cops. And then as I'm entering into, I'm like, there's a fucking tank there. What the fuck is this shit? I'm like, hell no, this shit's scary. This shit, because sports is different, bro, in the United States, man. Like, this is, you guys look like y'all are going to war. Yeah. Like, doom, 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 doom. But yeah, entering into that stadium and I see that fucking tank, I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? What the fuck did I get myself into? But you can feel the energy, man. It's kind of crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, you're closer to Red Star Belgrade than Partizan. Yeah, I can feel it. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm going to take you, bro. We're going to go to some basketball game because basketball is like, when you feel the atmosphere in the football stadium, you cannot compare it to this closed arena when it starts to rumble, you know, like boom, boom, boom.
We started seeing a lot of videos in the United States from the basketball game. People like literally Americans are like, what the fuck what's wrong with the Serbs? You guys are crazy.
Yeah, and they're like, I saw also comments like that NBA should like send a team or something like here to play. It's a good idea, you know.
That would be a good idea, man.
For Denver Nuggets, for example, to come here with Jokic, you know. I don't know how the rest of the team would feel, but
he's gonna be used to it. There was a famous interview that they did on him, like, you know, after one of the games, and then they told him, I'm like, are you okay with the pressure when you go play in Miami? He's like, man, I play in Serbia. And then they show boom, 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 boom.
Jokic brothers, they're the best, you know?
Man, they're like, they look like mafia guys, bro. Like, look like. I remember there was like one guy who was like, oh, those are Jokic brother. Oh, now we see he's the little brother. Like, the huge, scary guys, man. They don't smile. I've never seen them smile.
This guy, his brother, the oldest one, he looks like he's going to explode. Or this, you know.
Huge dude, man.
And then they fight on the fucking stands, you know.
You saw that.
That's not good. That's not good. You're going to spend a lot of time here in Serbia. There is a lot of things in ahead of you. Two of us are going to meet in Kragujevac and rest of the Šumadija, the heart of Serbia. We're going to do we can do some projects together, like there, film something, and it's going to be good to feel it on the spot, feel it where Nazis killed innocent people, feel the place where we defended ourselves against the Ottomans. I can't wait for that to happen, and I'm looking forward to it. And after that, we are going to, before you go back home, we're going to do another show. I'm going to ask you that questions, especially about Serbia and how do you feel right now, because there is a lot of things that you need to see, especially if you are doing something which you are doing and you're doing a good thing. Also especially for our country and history, you should be at least awarded by us giving you information where to go, what to see, and what to hear. So, and
Mario, that will mean a lot, man. I really do appreciate the extension of that, man. And I know we talked about it before. Again, the genesis of my story, learning about Serbia, started with like the atrocities that happened during World War II, and everything expanded from that. So again, I really do appreciate the invitation, and I'm gonna take you up on that.
I'm going to take you to a monastery. Special monastery where you cannot enter if you got vaccinated against COVID, you know. That's a hardcore.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah. Oh, they call it the devil's sign. This is the first thing that they ask you when you come to the monastery. If you wear Nike, you're devil, man. You're wearing Satan's shit, you know.
Man, I have to change shoes.
No, the shoes okay, but you're black. Like,
I don't put anything with brands, man. I really don't care about that stuff.
Why should you? You're not like me, you know.
No. Adidas. Well, this is you guys' uniform, man.
Eastern Europe style.
Eastern Europe style.
Thank you, Aaron, so much for being my guest today.
Thank you so much, Mario. I really appreciate it, brother. Thank you again for the invitation.
Yeah, I'm going to also call people to follow Aaron's channels on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Today is X. So you can get informed and learn something that you cannot hear on mainstream media or in the books, to be exact. You have heard it. This was Aron Palasios here in Belgrade, directly from the heart of the world, Serbia, the strongest nation, the strongest people. Don't fuck with it. We're not going to cut your hair off. We're not like that, But embrace us. We are all brothers. Amen. It doesn't matter where do we come from. If we know, and we know who the God is and what's his name and his name of his son, we believe that there is a life after this life, and we should all work together to earn ourselves a ticket to heaven. So have a nice day. Share this video. Find me also on social networks, and you're going to hear from me soon with another guest, either from Serbia or from abroad. It doesn't matter. So stick around, and I don't know if you have summer if the summer arrived, but if it arrived, go swim somewhere, chill, be happy, have a nice life. See you in the next episode. I'm off.